This is Remo Daily, your daily dose of inspiration. This is Remo Daily, an oasis of innovation for your mind, your soul, and your heart. Connect, act, and recharge with Remo Daily. This is Remote. 1, 2, 3, 4 daily.
And live from Astoria, Queens, this is Leonor and Dario. Thank you both so very much. And this is the stage for our man of the hour, Sydney Skybetter. Sydney, welcome back to the stage. So good to have you.
Thank you.
I hope you feel a little bit different.
Oh God, it's so great. I gotta say, I mean, one of the reasons I was so excited to join you today was like, y'all have thought this shit through. I love the incorporation of the music and embodiment. It's incredibly thoughtful and fucking high fives. Sorry, I'm swearing a lot, but high fives.
Thank you. That could be a new t-shirt. I've thought this shit through. I actually thought my t-shirt would be my job, blah, blah, which is more accurate. But hey, thank you for giving us a new tagline. That's fantastic.
Yep.
I also encourage you all, of course, to spend more time with Karis, with Kara's sister, Jade, who are mindfulness guides on Spotify, on Aptiv, on their respective websites and channels. And I also encourage you to spend more time with Elena and Dario, who have shows coming up in New York City. We will share all the details in the chat in just a minute. Sydney, one question I had for you as a choreographer is, when you think about this stage that you're on right now, and the wooden physical stage that you had your original training on, what do you actually find to be the main difference?
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure which is healthier, or which is a better idea. I guess what strikes me then is that both of these things are technologies, the stage and the screen, as it were. It's just that the technology of the proscenium stage is now somewhat naturalized. It's been around for 300 years or so, 400 years or so. But worth recalling, especially as we contort ourselves towards the Zoom and are enmeshed in various controversies of our internet, our cultural moment, that the stage was originally a very controversial technology, and people fought about it for a century. So from like the 16th to the 17th century, there were French courtiers who were preoccupied with ballet for various reasons, and they were convinced that the stage was going to ruin ballet, and they yelled and yelled and yelled about it for literally 100 years until everybody died, and then nobody could remember what they argued about. And now we have stages, and stages are seemingly natural and neutral, but of course they come from a specific politics in a specific place, as so does Zoom.
It's fascinating. So help me understand. You're basically saying the invention of the stage was the beginning of the end, because it meant capitalism. It meant you elevated others so that more people could see them. So it was just the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I mean, maybe another way of putting it would be like, it's always the beginning of the end. And a function of dance history, so far as I teach it, is to consider any number of technologies along the way that have impacted the art form that we understand to be dance. But dance is obviously bigger than ballet. It's bigger than the Western dance tradition. But there's been any number of individual technologies that shape our aesthetic understanding of how these things work. And I highlight the technologies, the technological here for a number of reasons, not the least of which because these technologies within ballet history specifically are profoundly embodied. So for example, the pointe shoe. The pointe shoe, in contemporary incarnation anyway, is essentially like a block of wood with kind of a toe-shaped hole, like a toe box here. And then there's like some satin stuff, and there's like a kind of piece of stiffened wood or cardboard or whatever that makes up the rest of the body of the thing. And then there's like ribbons and stuff that look like a pointe shoe, and that's called a pointe shoe. But this is like an insane technological contrivance. Like, it's bananas, like now, but it's been naturalized. But 300 years ago or 200 years ago, when it was first coming into existence. And I'm thinking here of the great ballerina Marie Taglioni. Back in the first days of what was called the pointe shoe, this was like a piece of cardboard. It was a piece of cardboard that she strapped with ribbon to her foot. And instead of like what we contemporarily understand to be pointe work, which is like the seamless and graceful like ascension and descension of a ballerina onto point and off of point to create ethereal magical effects or whatever. Back in the 18th century, yes, Eileen, painful. Back in Taglioni's day, there was no graceful ascent and descent. You had to like hop onto the point. You had to hop onto the point, and then you'd like kind of like waggle on point to create because you're a sylph for like a vampire or whatever magical ethereal misogynistic role you were playing, and then you'd like hop off a point, and then you'd like kind of waddle around having injured your knees and ankles and feet, and then you'd like hop back onto point and like waggle around, and now like the aesthetic has changed, technique has changed over time, but like these dancerly technologies, they are designed, they are engineered, people make decisions about how they affect and impact our bodies. And so for me, dance history is just full of case studies of the risks and opportunities for when bodies meet emerging technologies.
Somebody that comes up in your work a lot is Merce Cunningham, and you also, I think, use this, one of the most influential American modern dance choreographers, as a way of saying this is when computers entered dance. I think it was in the 90s. As I said, I'm not a dancer, so please correct me if my research goes wayside here. But Liz helped me to prepare for the session. She said, this is a super influential figure, and there's actually video content out there that we can look at together where we see how motion, graphics, and how basically computerized motions were then inflected onto humans. So while I share this video, Sydney, please help us understand why is this work was a breaking point for dance.
Sure. So this is one of my favorite works of Merce Cunningham's. This is a piece called Biped, which itself is named after a piece of software called Biped that was incorporated into the motion capture software used to generate those haunting projected figures that you see in the background. So Merce Cunningham, as a choreographer, is renowned for his ceaseless use of emerging technologies in performance environments. And this is something that is pretty distinct. A lot of choreographers are somewhat phobic of emerging technologies for lots of very good reasons. But Cunningham was tech-philic. Any emerging technology that he could get his hands on, especially as it pertained to the body, he would use and deploy in performance. So there's two ready examples in this particular work. First, as you can see, there are these haunting animations that are being projected onto scrims on either side of the dancers. And those animations are derived from motion capture data, again, using this piece of software then called Biped, where motion capture data is extracted from moving dancers and then contextualized in these animations, which are then projected. But also the movements of the dancers themselves. Some of these movements are generated by Cunningham himself or by the dancers in a fashion, but many of them were also actually composed using choreographic software. In this case, choreographic software called dance forms or life forms. So on so many levels, Merce Cunningham is the embodiment of a choreographer who deploys technologies. And this particular work, Biped, shows like any number of those technologies usages layered on top of each other. It's also just a gorgeous, gorgeous dance.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking us into this world. And I have one other thing for us to look at, Boston Dynamics. We have seen content of Boston Dynamics before on the web here on Remote Daily. Their dancing robots are as terrifying as they're amazing and humanizing. And they do all what they do with us through movement. So let's have a look. And maybe you can help us again, Sydney, just help us understand what is going on here. Why are we so impacted by this? And why is it so important for your world and your work to look at this and make us understand how technology and humans are going to merge in the future.
I'll do my best, man. So what we see here is a line of a quadrupedal four-legged robot by a company called Boston Dynamics called Spot. And so these robots are designed somewhat anthropomorphically to resemble a dog, per the name Spot, right? Except you have this long ass neck that is a head. There's anatomically, kinematically, there's like a lot going on there. But functionally, anatomically, these things are designed to look kind of like dogs or other quadrupedal animals. And so we see this, and we see the movement of animals. We see the movements of maybe ourselves on all fours. These are movement vocabularies that are recognizable to us. And in thinking about the uncanniness, the incredible weirdness of this moment, I'm reminded of a piece of jargon from dance theory and neurobiology to a certain extent called kinesthetic empathy. Kinesthetic empathy. This is a specific and specialized form of what we understand as empathy that is grounded in the body. And maybe more specifically, let's say that, for example, I've taken a lot of ballet classes as a child. As an adult, I go see a ballet class and I'm moved because I see the dance theater of it all and understand and appreciate it. But maybe more specifically at the neurological level, I'm able to have an emotional, physiological experience in reflection of the dance work, specifically because I also took ballet. I'm seeing movements on stage that I myself have embodied. So this is kinesthetic empathy. With the robots, we have a very queer, uncanny version of that, especially with the bipedal robots that Boston Dynamics puts out named Atlas, where we can see a robot moving kind of like us. And especially in the Boston Dynamics context, they're doing like the mashed potato, they're doing some disco moves, sort of, they're doing moves riffing on Swan Lake. And I see this robot and I've done these moves. I've been to that club. I've been in that show. And so I have a very strange embodied response where I empathize with a robot. And yet the robot is not a person. The robot is not it's a contrivance. It's an apparatus. And yet I'm empathizing with it. And so this is the kind of, I think, where some of the uncanniness, Felix, that you're mentioning here comes from. That I'm having a corporeally intimate relation with a robot on the basis of shared movement knowledge, even though the robot has nothing in common with my body and does not approach movement in any way like I would approach movement.
And John just shared a link here in the chat with a blooper reel from Boston Dynamics. The only effect this blooper reel has, which shows robots falling left and right and making all kinds of mistakes, is it makes it more human to us, right? It makes us empathize even more because
which is a like bananas thing to say.
Yeah,
it's bananas. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Bananas. No, not at all. So thank you, John, for sharing that. It's Sydney. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'll say also here is I especially in my I give guest lecture type things to conservatories around and one of the questions that I most frequently and predictably get from dancers is when I'm talking about robots is like, are these robots coming for our jobs? Like, are the robots going to replace us? And now this is a very like both like nouveau but also very, very, very old question about labor replacement. And on some level, like absolutely, these robots are coming for like jobs. However, these particular robots, even though in this one take, like it seems to be or in the one take of the music video or whatever, like they seem to be seamlessly working and everything kind of works. But what the blooper reel reveals is that actually these robots are very, very bad at this. They are very, very not good at this. They can be made to appear graceful under certain circumstances, under certain conditions, after you've like gone through 1,000 iterations of it. But functionally, like, important to keep in mind that the robots are like, yes, coming for jobs, and there's a whole lot of labor questions implicated or involved in that. But no, they're not going to come for dance performers jobs anytime soon.
We have two more questions for you before you have to hop off, Sydney.
Yeah.
One is the one Eileen just asked in the chat. So will we be partnering? Will we be dancing with them? Are there projects out there already that you as a choreographer know of, or maybe have even been produced that we could look at where this actually works out and you have the actual dance, the one-on-one?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Eileen. So there's all sorts of performances that involve robotic performers and dancers on stages. This is a specific kind of niche bit of choreography and performance. I might direct you to Katie Kwan and Amy Leviers, Kate Ladenheim, and I'm happy to put these notes, share these websites in the show notes or whatever. There's any number of choreo roboticists. These are choreographers trained as roboticists and vice versa, who perform with robots on stage. And this is a fascinating exercise in performance, but also like recontextualizing the aesthetics of dance performance. Because like we don't have a rubric for understanding like what a good dance robot looks like. We really don't. The other thing I'll mention here is, will we be partnering with them? Every robot, like, so my computer is a sort of a robot, my phone is sort of a robot, like we have so many like sort of robots that we already partner and gesture and interface with on a daily basis, right? And so there's a lot of projects that are specifically about like human robot interaction or human robot interfaciality. And so something we've been thinking about here at Brown, for example, about ballet, again, with the ballet, but balletic épaulement, which is again how the body faces or comports relative to front or to another dancer. How we face one another says a lot about our attention, our intentions, what we're about to do next. We're making all of these things legible to other people in space on the basis of our bodily comportment, right? And so if you think about like robots, for example, in a healthcare context or in a medical context, these things look and move like Terminators or like refrigerators. They're frequently like very chunky, very blocky. They move unpredictably. And there's something to be said about the incorporation of, again, a rigorously methodologically sound ground movement vocabulary, such as balletic épaulement, and incorporating that into medical robots. Because medical robots currently are very stressful. They are very stressful to look at and interface with, especially if you are on the receiving end, for example, of medical care. And as you know from medical environments, like things that are stressful kill people. Like if you're stressed out, your body physiologically responds very dramatically in ways that co-interface with other, presumably the reasons why you would be in a medical context to begin with. And so you being stressed out could actually lead to negative health outcomes. Good healthcare robots that nonetheless move like Terminators will stress you out, and this is bad. And so there's a question about like, well, is there something about like dance performance and ballet specifically about balletic comportment that can be brought or ported to the robot so that robots are less stressful and less likely to stress you out in medical contexts? So that's one example of many, but there's these choreo roboticists who are bringing robots into performance. Katie Kwan here being the kind of ne plus ultra of that movement, as well as any number of research initiatives at Brown and otherwise that are about bringing dancerly intelligences or dancerly knowledge and experiences into robotic design.
Fascinating. Oh my God, Sydney, we're already closing in on your time because you have to run off to the lecture. I have one last question for you though.
Please.
Other than we have to invite you back soon, and I hope you find the time because there's so much more to discuss here. Also hashtag capitalism. But last question, how can we support you as a community?
Yeah, I love that question. That's really generous of y'all. So I'll say that a lot of this work, especially in foregrounding bodies and foregrounding embodiment, in acknowledging the politics and violence of so many of these dynamics, this is social work. This is organizing. This is about constellating and being in affinity. This is community organizing. This is the work of being in relation. And as such, I am deeply interested in anybody who would want to continue this conversation. I would love to be of support and resource to any of you, whatever your professional or personal context, to catalyze conversations about bodies, about embodiment, about how we relate to our world. These questions are urgent and always have been. But to kind of turn the question on its head a little bit, you can help me by pointing me in the direction of conversations or organizations or people that are also interested in these conversations. I'm a straight white dude with a clipboard. I'm legible in particular ways. My embodiment performs in certain facilities. I'm here to be wielded. So if you know of folks or are yourself interested in pursuing these kinds of conversations, especially when it comes to the knotty, gnarly aspects of embodiment and its politics, I'm here to be an ally and of support. So I'm literally going to put my personal email address here in the chat, literally right now. This is me.
And this is why Sydney Skybetter rocks. So let's use the time and shed some virtual glitter for our guest today on Remote Daily, who's running off to a lecture right now to help more people understand tech, dance, and our futures in our bodies. Thank you so very much, Sydney Skybetter. What an honor to have you on Remote Daily. And hope to see you soon on this stage or another. And please keep us in the loop. And please reach out to Sydney and make sure that the conversation continues. So much more to talk about. Sydney Skybetter, you're a rock star. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Being part of this.